Welcome to DearEX, a new podcast series from the creators of the Mohua Show. In this podcast, we will speak to individuals who've had the courage to call it quits in their relationships and marriages when it wasn't working any longer. We will discuss the dreaded D word of divorce, which most of us shy away from. DearEX will speak to once married, now single folks, people going through heartbreak, counselors, and lawyers to bring you honest, trippy truths of what it took to say no more. Hi, in today's episode, we have with us a guest whose name is Paul. He's a 35-year-old living in Portugal. We know that in Portugal, the social conditioning and understanding of marriage and divorce is very different from India. And I'm a host who's from India, so obviously our sensibilities are very different. So Paul is going to throw light, on what it is like, in Portugal, where I think when people don't get along, they don't fear social taboo and they can restart their life all over again. So Paul, thank you for joining us today from Portugal. To kick things off, could you just share a little bit about your background and what led you to your divorce, with your partner? And is divorce quite easily accepted in Portugal?
Okay, thank you, Moha. Thank you for having me on the show. To give a brief about my divorce, we had been in a relationship for more than 8 years. That was a marriage relationship for more than 8 years. And the reason that, as you said, there is no taboo here, the societal pressure, we don't have a lot of society pressure compared to other countries. Most of the European countries don't see this social pressure. So that makes it a little better to get divorced. And yeah, relationships are always healthy and going good when you are in bound of a relationship. There is no doubt with that. But when there is a time that you stop understanding each other, when there is time that you feel that you need to get separated, at that time we can easily go ahead with it, is because we don't have any social pressure here or the societal pressure to forcefully bond to the relationship. So it's easier because of the society is welcoming and accepting. It's totally okay from either of the guy or the girl. We don't have anything like that. So the society is okay, the society is welcoming. So we don't have necessarily any kind of pressure to hold on to our relationship.
And what was that point, Paul, for you when you realized that, your marriage wasn't working anymore after 8 years? If you could just share that, because I think in India, the circumstances are a little different, because in joint family systems, sometimes the girls don't get along with their in-laws. The in-laws don't get along with the girls. Sometimes the duties that is shared between a man and a woman is different. There's still gender disparity when it comes to labor at home. Is it the same work at home? Sorry, not the word labor. Work at home that is done, raising a child, managing the house, doing the cooking, the cleaning, is generally, in majority cases, it is the woman in India who handles this. And this causes a whole lot of issues actually between two couples, because even the woman now is working. So what are the kind of issues that generally happen, where we know that in Portugal, divorce rates are quite high in comparison to our country?
Yeah, so as I told you that first we don't have any society pressure, so we just get divorced. And the other thing is, the reason that we had to part our ways because of our lack of understanding or miscommunication. She is an Indian girl that I was married to, and a Hindu girl. So there was a drastic problems with her family, and then they had a lot of problems, and she was not in touch with her family, and which even created a lot of misunderstandings between us, because she had to give up her family because of me, because of this relationship. So there was a lot of other things that had to be handled. Yeah, coming to your point that you said, a lot of things a woman does at home in India. So here the responsibilities are not about managing the home. We both used to go to work here. We were working together, and the things here is the house roles are gender neutral here, but because we both can cook, and most of the people, men or women, everybody cook their own food here, and there were no problems regards to the home management or anything like that. But it was majorly because of our family pressure and the other kind of things which created a lot of misunderstandings, and we had to part our ways.
So, Paul, just tell me a little bit about the emotional challenges that you faced and how did you cope up with it. I've had quite a few men also in India who've come onto the show and they've spoken about how difficult it has been for them, to navigate the entire aspect of coming back alone to the house. So, how did you cope up with it?
Yeah, it's very challenging, living with the person for a long time, and then you realize that it is suddenly it's not gonna be remain the same anymore. So emotionally, I was a lot affected, but it was very. I felt started feeling very lonely and alone. I could not communicate well with people, or I could not go and socially interact with people because I was a constant fear that okay, this is again going to be temporary. I did not want to get attached to anybody, so there were a lot of things like that. It was very hard to accept it emotionally because it was like a shock. Oh, after all these years it's just done, it's just over, like it mattered nothing at all. So yeah, it was very challenging, and it was very draining emotionally, but yeah, accepting the facts.
Yes, accepting the fact is a very, very big, it's a growth in itself, because I think one needs to grow, and I think a whole lot of people and that you talk to, they all say that they find it extremely difficult to go out and socialize after going through a breakup because you start wondering, what is wrong with you. You can't join in the banter and the laughter all around, and
Yes, it's quite challenging sometimes, yeah.
yes, you almost become different as a human being, after a huge life altering thing like this. So, tell me, how did your friends, family, and community react to your divorce? Did you find a supportive network during this challenging time? Because, we know of many cases where girls sometimes are not even supported by their parents, and even boys are told to hold on. I mean, come what may, don't let go of the marriage. And so, how was it in Portugal?
Yeah, so here, I have a very good friend circle here. It's very good for a long time. So my friends are always supportive and accepting, and my family also. They it doesn't matter much to them that I'm married or divorced. But yeah, I don't live with my family. Uh, but yeah, they are also supportive. It's no big deal for anybody here. It's like okay, it had to happen. It parted ways. It was a good time. Cherish the moments, and yeah, you have a long life ahead. So
So, Paul, have you dated anybody after that?
no, not yet. I haven't dated anybody. As I told you that I'm finding it still a little bit difficult to socialize, interact, and people build a connection. Yeah, it's easy to go communicate with people, but building that real connection that is the hardest part here, because here it's nobody is looking for anything meaningful.
Okay, and what is meaningful for you?
Meaningful is something that you see of you see a future, your future in them. You plan to grow with them, build a life together. That's something meaningful. It's not just like you go on a date and it's next day it's over. It's not something like that. So, but a lot of people here, it goes into that direction.
So tell me something, like I was just reading, and in Portugal, because there is a high rate of divorce, do you think people are losing faith in the entire, institution of marriage? And do you think, it also stops people from entering into relationships in the country?
So I don't feel it's particularly only because of the couples or the marriages. So you would also need to consider this European country also has some kind of fake marriages. You understand, because of the citizenship clauses or things like that. There are some people who tend to marry with an intention of only getting settled here or things like that. So that is one of the cause in most of the European countries, I believe, but at least Portugal, yes. So that is one of the cause. Fake marriage is one of the cause for the higher divorce rate. And yes, of course, there is a higher divorce rate here because, as I told you, people get along, but there comes a point when you need to part your ways, and you're not bound to stay in the relationship or stay in the marriage by anything, neither by the law, neither by the family or friends. I think when you compare it to India, I think we have a lot of societal pressure that you shouldn't get divorced from. It's either boy or a girl. I think so. That's what is not causing a lot of Indians to get divorced. Is what I feel.
And how soon can you get your divorce going, Paul, in the courts in Portugal?
Yeah, you have this 90-day window period that after you apply and you finalize, and it's a 90-day window period, and then you can get divorce.
And what about alimony? Did you need to pay alimony to your wife?
No, it totally depends if she isn't working, and we also have something called a social contribution here. If you are an employed, government gives you some money for your expenses if you are actually unemployed. So it applies also for her and also for me. So we are not in a situation where we can apply alimony. It's not just like I'm divorcing, give me so much money. No, it doesn't work like that. So there's a lot of things, a lot of procedures, a lot of evidences. So no, I did not have to give any.
Thank you, Paul, for being on today's podcast. This is exceptionally wonderful to get your insight, because this was I've had a lot of people who've come on the show who've spoken about things that happened in India. It's wonderful for our listeners to know that in Portugal, I guess society views it very differently, and which is a very, very wonderful sign, because I think even India is going that way, where a lot of marriages today are breaking down, and slowly people are beginning to realize that it's better to be out of toxicity than to remain in a toxic relationship forever. So just before we end the podcast, are there any experiences with your divorce of personal growth and lessons that you've gained that can also shape your perspective, that has shaped your perspective on love and relationships as you move forward? I think for our listeners, they're going to learn from you. Could you just share a few insights?
Yeah, I think the most basics of a relationship should be a trust. I should be completely trust. Any relationship you're starting, be it marriage or a relationship, you start with complete trust. That's very critical, I feel. So the reason that I say this is because now when I go ahead with different people, try to make connections or things like that, I have very big trust issues. So I think, be it a girl or a boy, once in your relationship, and when you get out of the relationship, the impact that you leave stays with the person for life. And so I say trust is the basis of everything. So
So I think it's the same thing everywhere, Paul. It is about trust, it is about love, it is about connection. It really isn't different, from country to country. It's just this that I think society in India is opening up.
I think society is just making things complicated. That's all. Apart from that, I think there is no much difference. People there love, people here love. They are misunderstand. It's all same. It's just that they're born to they're forced to stay in a marriage which they don't want to. That's the only difference.
So, Paul, what are the things that you won't do in your next relationship?
A lot of things. A lot of things. I'd start communicating more, and I would take time. I would not be hasty. I was in hurry. I was in a lot hurry in my previous relationship, but I will take things slow. I'll take things to a meaningful direction. I will not settle until I'm certain that this is what I want in my life and this is what I see. So yeah, that's a lesson for me.
Thank you so much for sharing those lessons, because I'm sure many of our listeners are going to hear this from you, that you need to take it slow and steady, and and win the race if it is a race at all.
Yeah, if it is.
And thank you so much for being on the podcast, and thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for listening to DearEX from the creators of the Mohua Show. We would be delighted to get your feedback for these candid conversations that our guests shared with us. If you want to reach out to us, DM us at our Instagram page, The Mohua Show. We all know to call it quits isn't easy. To D or not to D isn't really an easy question to answer.